In this example, I will use Photoshop and use what's called a Photoshop action to take the source imagery. I'm going to take these 4 TIFF files of Jefferson County, and I'm going to have Photoshop adjust the colors on all 4 images, and it will do it in a batch process using what's called an action, which is kind of like a macro, and I'll show you that. And I don't expect anyone to be a Photoshop expert after all this. This is really just an introduction of some of the things that you can do, and at least you'll be somewhat familiar with it, and if you see something useful, then you can take it from there. Because Photoshop, there's a lot of things you can do. It is a steep learning curve, but there's really 2 ways you can automate in Photoshop, and I won't get into a lot of details, but there's a batch processor. You go under File, Automate Batch Processing here, and then there's something similar, File, Scripts, Image Processor, and there's some differences between them, and I can't get into the details about why you'd use one or the other, but we're going to use the Image Processor to run some actions that will, quicker than I'm explaining this, make a color adjusted versions of these several TIFF files. And we're just going to run it through several files, but it could run through hundreds. It would take longer, so we're not going to do that. I already have things set up here in the image processor. So the source folder, this is already set up, but you'd select the folder where the source files are, and then you'd select the folder where you want it to save the results, and I've already pre-selected that, and I have it going into that folder. I'll just hit cancel so I don't change anything by accident. And you have some choices. You could save, so our source files are TIFFs, and you could save them as JPEG, but we don't want to do that. You could save them as a Photoshop file, and we don't want to do that either. And again, we just want to take the TIFF files and adjust them and save them again as TIFFs, and use what's called LZW compression on them. And here's where you run the action. You select that, and if you have actions set up in Photoshop, and again I won't get into a lot of details in this particular demo about that, except that we have some here. I have several actions here, and there's some actions that come with Photoshop, and there's some you can build, and I've built several here. Again, there could be a whole class on how you could build an action, and I can't get into a lot of detail there. This is just kind of an introduction. So anyway, this action will run when I click the Run button, so I'll do that. And this is going through each image, and you can see a little progress bar, and you can see the actions here. And all these steps are adjusting the colors and doing several other things. Why don't I bring up the actions window? So this was the action that just ran, and again, This was something I built. They're kind of macros, and then you can save them as a file, and you can export them, and you can import them into another copy of Photoshop if you want to give it to somebody who also has Photoshop, that sort of thing. You know, I could have a 2-day class on just something like this. How do you make something like this? And this part here, this is how it's adjusting the colors, and we'll see the results. Here's gamma correction. If you want to delve into Photoshop, it really is a useful tool. Now, let's look at our outputs. Let's see, the output folder. So these are the TIFF files it created, and we can't really do anything with them right now. You notice they don't have any world files or other things with them. So the way we get around that is, what we can do is go to the source folder and simply copy over the world files and the XML files. So take the files from the source directory minus the TIFF files and the overview files and just paste them in your output directory. We're almost ready to look at these images in ArcMap. I put the original imagery in, and you can see how hazy it looks. Before we can bring in the new imagery, there's a small problem. We have to do what's called define the projection, which is not the same as reproject. Anyways, I have this toolbox which we can provide, and one of the tools I made is a define projection tool, and we'll set it to our projection here. And anyways, here's a description. What do we mean by define projection? And anyways, this is not reprojecting the data. If we don't run this tool, we might get when we try to bring the imagery into ArcMap, we might get an error message saying that it doesn't recognize the projection, and it'll place the imagery okay, but because the imagery went through Photoshop, it didn't. It's like it erased something with the projection info in the TIFF files header. You might have to run that tool, and it just takes a few seconds to run. So now this is the processed imagery. Yeah, I have to build pyramids. And so I'm going to group all these, I'll call it new processed. Can I bring these on top? I think I need to get these adjusted. Okay, so that's our newly adjusted imagery on top, color adjusted on top, and let's see, original imagery on the bottom. So you can see the difference right there. It's quite a significant difference, and the colors are, move that out of the way. The colors are a lot more natural, and the imagery is sharper. Just it's in every way much better. That shows you what a valuable tool Photoshop is in making color adjustments to your imagery.